Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We are group 1 from GK class, speaking for academic and professional communication. In this video, we are going to have a group discussion. First, we will discuss about topic giving a conference talk. But before we start our discussion, we will introduce ourselves. First, my name is Zulfah Afifatuz Zuhriyah.
My name is Amytasya Wahyu.
My name is Nurfaizah Muna.
My name is Nurul Izzah.
My name is Kelvin Marcello Efendi.
Okay, guys, here we will start a discussion about the topic giving a conference talk. Before we start our discussion, you have read the topic, right?
Yes.
Yes, I have.
What do you think, Tasha?
Okay, first, here we will start a conversation about giving a conference about you have read about this topic before. First, I think there are 7 general principles of giving a conference talk.
Yes, that's right, Ami.
I know what it is. That is know your goal, know your audience, know your medium, cut material rapidly, make one point, transitions, make the talk, and the last is practice in public.
Yeah, I agree with you with your answer, Izzah.
So what's the mean from that's all, guys? I know
So,
know your goal. So a conference talk goal is to make the audience want to read your paper. The talk does not replace the paper.
read, know your audience. Your audience has a different perspective on your project than you do. Think about how the ideas you are intimately familiar with need to be communicated to a broader group. Second, you know your medium oral. Communication is different from written communication. Listeners have one chance to hear you talk and cannot reread. When they are confused, they are told you will know ways to communicate your point. The first is to keep it simple, stupid. Second, repeat K inside.
Okay, furthermore, cut material ruthlessly. The conference talks I remember are the ones where the speaker spoke slowly and confidently and made one point well. Talks that try to make too many points are almost always forgettable. And then make one point hierarchically. Each talk should make one key point. Each talk of 3 until 5 slides should make one key point. And this point needs to be explicitly decided. Explicitly starting this point to the audience is fine.
Okay, well, if the transitions, make the talk before you make a point. The audience need to know the point you are about to make and appreciate why you are making it. After you make a point, the audience need to be reminded of the point you just made and understand why it matters.
And the last is practice in public. Prepare. Plan to spend 3 until 4 weeks preparing for an important conference talk. It is hard distilling work down to 25 minutes. You will not get it right the first time or the second. A typical timeline might be minutes 10 minutes, 3 until 4 weeks. Prepare draft slides. Second, uh, the 2 until 3 weeks pre-practice with group. And then 1 week again, give talk to broader audience. And then when they practice with group the night before the talk.
Okay, there are a number of tricks that take very little effort on your part, but that can greatly increase your effectiveness. Make them habits, and you will stand out from 90% of technical speakers in the world.
Well, now in this discussion, there are four discussions that we will discuss. Can you mention it?
Okay, number one, voice and energy. You get to control what everyone in the room will think for the next 30 minutes. Realize this opportunity and control the audience. First, vary the volume and rhythm of your voice. Nice direct word might be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a regular time pause. Samuel Clemens. Next, point at the screen, not at the projector. Use your arm, a leg. Next, move your feet. Next, deliver the talk from the different position on the stage, but don't overdo it. And the last, make eye contact with audience members in different parts of the room.
Okay, and the second one are question answering. Things that need to be considered in question answering are let the questioner finish asking the question before you answer. Second, repeat audience question before answering them. Uh, Next, don't read too much into question, and then think about a question before answering it. And then if you don't know, say so and don't bluff it. And then practice question answering, and then have backup slides for key question. And the last, know when to say, let's take this offline.
And the third is structure. Relate work is generally abbreviated in short talk, and then fonts smaller than 18 points, 20 points if using an LCD projector, and lines that take more than one line are forbidden. And then debug your slides before you inflict them on an audience, and then no one ever left a talk saying,
Well, and the last is countdown. Introduce yourself to the session chair at the end of previous session, and then spend the 30 minutes before your talk in a quiet place thinking about the talk. And spend the 5 minutes before your talk concentrating on how you will deliver the first or two or three slides.
Original. Guys, I want to ask you about general tips from Tutor Original. How about that? Do you know?
Oh, that I know, Ami. The first tips are tips of delivery, such as talking with notes. This serves that your conversation is directed and does not get out of the topic of your predetermined points. You must have the main point of what you write. And then reading the paper. Reading the paper should not exceed to the maximum time. It takes about 2 until 2.5 minutes to read a page. The second, this paper is to be heard, not read. When you are presentation, keep in mind that your audience will rely on listening comprehension, not reading comprehension. Next, for the quotes, try to use your own words first. When a when a quote is necessary to make your point, use a side note phrase to introduce the source to your audience. For example, you can say as theorist Sandra Sabadi states, and then don't forget about the conclusion to remind the audience of what you previously said.
Okay, the next number three is incorporating slides or visual material. A successful visual presentation should be in sync with the spoken part of your presentation. And then make sure that you address the visual material on the screen. And when you have important points to share, it can be helpful to put text on the slides because your audience is listening to you and also reading. Try to keep the written part short. And then if your slides include writing, make sure the font size is large enough and that the color of the font works well with the background. And then spell check. Be sure to proofread so there are no typo. And then make your audience time to look at the slide. And be selective when you choose your image, visual, or graphs. And number four is overall appearance of the visual presentation. Keep it simple. Don't show too many visual graphics in the background. And then be visual consistent and use high quality image.
I see. Then what else?
Oh, there is the fifth. That is practice makes perfect. The most important thing to do is to practice your talk. Practicing your presentation will make you more confident. The more you practice, the easier it will be to look up at your audience, showing them that you care about having their attention. And then do not go over your allotted time. And then group presentation. If you are presenting with a colleague, practicing and designing the talk together. And the last is you may want to change the font size of your printed paper or notes to at least 14 point.
Yes, that's right. But there's more. The culture of conference paper. First, when you communicate via email with an organizer of a panel or the organizer of your honor thesis presentation, make sure to be prompt, precise, and professional in your correspondences. Next, when you are at a conference, exhibit confidence and excitement and stay close to your group of presenters in the front. Make sure to introduce yourself to the chairs both the session and be ready to meet and greet a lot of people who may ask you the same question over and over again. Next, avoid unnecessary delays. Have your presentation print or on an iPad or other device and your digital file ready. And the last, dress the part. Depending on the conference you are attending, the dress code may vary significantly.
Yeah, I know. Then, as far as I know, there is a Q&A section. Is that true, guys?
Yes, that's true, Ami. What do you know about the explanation from the Q&A?
Oh, okay. Yes, I know. Q&A chance are the answer. Sometimes someone may ask you a very complicated and perhaps even obscure question. At times it is helpful to reiterate what they are is asking. Am I understanding correctly? You are asking side as side. Then that can buy you some time to think. And it may at least the audience member to be more to the point. Remember that you cannot know everything, and that is completely fine. You are at the conference to share what you know and also learn from others. Here too, confidence comes with practice. Try to find coaches or friends who are willing to listen to your presentation. Like that.
Well, that is an important thing you have to know, guys. That is the last tip. Remember that many people get nervous before a talk, even those who have done it many times. Some things may be out of your control. Try to have fun no matter what.
Okay, guys, let's move on the next discussion.
Okay,
Really cool.
what are we going to discuss, guys?
Now we want to talk about how to give paper presentation. Does anyone know what the paper presentation?
So it's divided into several case, guys. The case section to presenting a paper orally are introduction, methods, result, discussion or conclusion, and the last, critique and group discussion.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I know. Introduction. The first or two slides should introduce your subject to the audience. Provide a brief background about your paper and explicitly state the question addressed in the paper. After that, start with the big picture and, and then immediately drive to how your study fits in the big picture. One or two sentences. Second is methods. There are should be one or two methods slides that allow the audience to understand how the experiment was conducted, and you might include a flow chart describing the type of the experiment.
I also know that result. The next slide should show the major result. Start showing the audience basic phenomena and introducing the audience to basic units of measure. Furthermore, if the results are in the form of numbers, then show the numbers that clearly describe the main result. Do not show raw data graphs. All images must be clearly labeled. When showing numbers, be sure to explain the axis of the image before you talk about the data. For example, the x-axis shows the time, the y-axis shows the level of neural activities. Discussion or conclusion. List the conclusion is clear, easy to understand language, and also give one or two sentences about what this likely means, your interpretation in the big picture.
And then the next is critique and group discussion. Your job as a presenter is not only present the paper, but also lead class discussion. To help focus the class discussion and of your presentation, you should give two or three main points to discuss. This should consist of things like things that might be improved in the study, additional experiments that you think might be appropriate and better, and general issues about object recognition. Example, put the study in the big picture of the course.
And so how do you do to be a good paper presentation? I will explain overall tips on how to give a good paper presentation. One is control of time. Number two is you should have no more slides than the minutes allowed for the presentation. Example, 20 slides for a 20 minutes presentation, but less slide is better. Number three is show enthusiasm for your topic. Number four, as you put up each slide, keep in mind the key points you want to make with the slide. And when you prepare and design a presentation, you should consider the slide that will be presented. And number 5, speak in short sentences and use easy to understand language. Number 6, you must and practice before doing a presentation. And number 7, to start the presentation so that it runs smoothly. You must try to memorize your first 1 or 2 sentences. When you get up to speak, this will almost reflexively come out of your mouth and launch you into your presentation.
Okay, well, the last one is 95% of the work is done before you even show up to give the presentation are you have clear slides with large font and minimal clutter. Number two, the slides are organized along the primary topics discussed about. Number three, you know the key points you want to make with each slide and have practiced. Number four, you have practiced the entire presentation and work out any rough spots. Number five, you are confident that the presentation is at the expected time limit and you can relax and enjoy showing off your grasp of the study and well-polished presentation.
Oh, well, guys, do you know how to present the outline of a research paper?
Oh, yes, I know. One of them is knowing the problem to be studied. First, there are several questions that you should be thinking about answering at the start of a presentation. What is the problem to be analyzed? Why should we care about resolving the issues that are studied here? What should we expect to learn? And the next, in answering this question, it helps to think of providing such answer to a very general audience, including people outside of the field of economics. If you cannot provide good answers to this question, you may want to think again about the importance of the study at hand.
Then, furthermore, you must contribution of your paper, like having described the basic problem at hand, start describing the specific study and approach of the paper that you are presenting. If it is a theoretical or econometrics paper, offer an overview of the techniques, setting, and model, and then the main result. If it is an empirical paper or experimental, describe the model or hypothesis to be tested, the data set or experimental design, and methodology used to analyze the data. Next, explain why the study is interesting, what is to be learned, and outline how you will go about it, and then move on. And last, avoid falling into the trap of presenting so much detail that you end up presenting the model twice.
And then associate it with literature. Next, you can put the contribution of the paper in perspective by describing how the result of the paper fit with what is already known. And then you should avoid turning your talk into a survey, unless, of course, it is one. And then at the end of the presentation, the contribution of the current paper is clear and some of this discussion can be better directed. And then, in almost all situations, it is easy to overestimate the familiarity of your audience with the specific of the subject at hand. And once you lose the audience, it is very hard to regain their attention.
And the last, give a definition or description of data. You can now begin to describe the framework, model, or study in some detail. Try hard to keep notation as simple as possible, using obvious symbols where possible, even in situation where you plan to present general result, it is helpful to use example as they can be a great device to familiarize the audience with the problem notation and approach of the paper. And then carefully chosen example can convey much of the insight as well. And then in other case, uh, the model in other case, the model, data set, and or techniques may be quite standard, and instead it is the conclusions that are more interesting, in which case it makes more sense to spend more time discussing the result of the research.
Oh yeah, Faiza. Like there's still something missing.
Oh yeah, okay, can you mention it, Zulfa?
Yes, of course. That is main results. You are now ready to present the main results and conclusion of the research. It is very important in this part of presentation to provide insight into the main theorems of results of the paper. If you describe the proof of a proposition of the theorem, it is often best to just provide the sketch of the proof and only to the extent that is informative. The more diverse the audience, the shorter this part of the presentation should be. And the sixth is conclusion. It helps to summarize what you have shown and what the audience should have learned from the paper, especially if you have presented more than one result. Then you can focus in on implication this might have for application or further research, as well as what the limitation of the results were and what the questions have been opened. And maybe that's all with our discussion today.
Yes.
Okay, let us end it here. I'm sorry if I made a mistake. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam
Waalaikumsalam
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh. Thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Ya
you.
Allah.
Thanks all.